All right, so today, you guys ready? Woo! Okay, here we go. We're plotting polar and naming the point three other ways. One of the biggest things, though, is if we look, I do restrict your domain. Reasoning why, if I didn't restrict that, you guys could take this point and just keep adding 2 pi to it. You know what I mean? And then you're not getting the concept of how to get like a negative pole, how to have a positive pole. So I do restrict your domain. And what we want is each one, we want you guys to have 2 positive poles and 2 negative poles. Okay, so now remember, polar coordinates go r, comma, theta, right? The r is called your like pole. So our r is 3, and our angle is 5 pi over 4. Start. Oh my God, I didn't. Oh, I did. Okay. All right. So this is number 1. Right. So we're doing 3. And I heard you guys say, what quadrant is this in? Third. Right. So we're going to go to the third quadrant. Now, when you guys start polar, all the grids I give you, these are like 15-degree marks. So the very first line you never use unless we're in degrees, because I could give you a 15-degree angle. But when we're with the unit circle, it's the lines are the 3 middle lines. Those are your big lines for the unit circle. So we have 0. This would be pi over 6, right? Pi over 4. Pi over 3. Pi over 2, pi. And then 2 pi, right? That's really all you need. If you wanted to finish like labeling your whole circle, you guys can. You don't need to, though. The biggest thing is to know I'm dealing with a pi over 4, so that should be the line directly in the middle, right? So 5 pi over 4, you said was in the third quadrant, right? So 1, 2, 3. So it's going to be this line. I usually will give you guys rulers because it does get, it makes your life a little bit easier. So I'm going to draw a solid line out on 5 pi over 4, right? So we plot the angle first, and then, Manraj, what's the ring? What's the R value? 3. So now I count 1, 2, 3, and I put a dot. And that's where your point lives. So that point is 3, comma, 5 pi over 4. Okay? Now, we want to name them 3 other ways. So we're going to set up, and you can do it right next to your circle. It's okay. We're going to set up 1, 2, 3. And I want one with another positive R value of a 3. And then I want 2 others with the negatives. I'll do them a different color. Okay. So we're going to set the R values up so you're not stressing about that. The biggest thing is we have a positive angle, right? That's 5 pi over 4. I'm going to draw that like the angle marker. Oh, I didn't want purple. That's okay. All right. What you want to now do is you want to find the negative angle to this ray that you guys drew. So we want to find this angle. This guy's 5 pi over 4. We know that angle, but you want the negative angle. Now, some of you guys might be able to do it in your head, but like I said, if you struggle, just take the math, like do the math. It takes all the worrying out. So since we have 5 pi over 4, and I want the negative angle, I subtract. So I go minus 2 pi over 1. And this will take all the math out of, like, it takes the guesswork out, I should say, right? Denominator is 4. What's your top going to be? 8. Let's just show what we're doing. So you get 8 pi. So now you see, oh, 5 minus 8 would give you guys what? Negative 3. And that's the red negative angle. That's this negative angle right here. Negative 3 pi over 4. Right? What I like to do is after you name it, try to plot that point, right? So like negative 3 pi over 4 means I would go in the negative direction. I'd land here in the third quadrant. My R is 3, so that means I would stay here. And yes, I would land on that point. I always check that it like lands on the point you drew. And then you know you named it properly. All right? You play like a little game. All right, so you have a positive angle and you have a negative angle, right? Together, do you notice that they form a circle? And that's what you want. You do not want to end in another quadrant. You have to stay here in the third quadrant, okay? Now, for the negative R values, what you guys are going to do is we're going to go diagonally across. We're going to stay on that pi over 4 line, and we draw a dashed line. Don't make this solid because it's not the point. It's just here to help you visually. So the green is going to be your negative like R values. And what you now want to do is you want to find out, well, what's this angle? What is that angle? What's the name of that angle? No, right here. What's this angle? Just pi over 4, right? Okay, so now negative 3 pi over 4. And let's see if we try to plot it, right? So remember, the way you plot is start with the angle. So I would go to pi over 4. I'd be here. I'd be here. But the R is negative. So you would shoot directly across. And yes, you land there. So if you land in the spot you plotted, that means you named it correctly. Okay? What do you think we're going to find for the last one? You're going to find the matching. So we have a positive angle. Now we just need the negative angle. So now you, I don't know what color. I'll do black, but you can't really see the black. So now you did the hard work already, right? So now you take pi over 4. You already have it right here. You just subtract 8 pi over 4, and that's going to give you who? Negative 7 pi over 4, right? And that should be, so since it's negative, it means I would start here. I'm going to do a smaller, try to do a smaller one. And you would end up there. That would be negative 7 pi over 4, right? And since the R is negative, you wouldn't stay there, right? So you wouldn't stay here on the green. You'd shoot through. And yes, I put little check marks because I'm like, all right, I actually landed there. So it's a good way, like, after you name them, see if you land on the dot. Right? Everything is like diagonal. As long as you have it diagonal, right, you should not use any other pi over 4s, just the ones that are on the diagonals. All right? Is that okay? You're like, we're going to keep practicing, don't worry. It gets like, the more you do it, start recording. All right, we are back, folks, with number 2. Let's go. All right, number 2, I throw a little wrench into the plan because what kind of angle am I starting with? Negative. Negative. Don't let that fool you, okay? So what personally, it's a negative angle. I would say, well, let's find the positive angle because we could plot that, right? So this is number 2. I'm going to label it number 2, right? You could go to a new grid just because I know we have a lot of writing. So that's the negative angle, but we're like, I don't want to deal with the negative angle. Some of you visually can do it. Some of you might be like, I don't even want to bother. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the counterpart to it before we even plot it. We're not even going to plot it yet.
Like, I was thinking that, like, because I remember for one of them, we had to, like, essentially find where it was, like, I'm thinking it's where it was. And then we would tell them.
So what you could do to help you find it is just, because it's negative, we add 2 pi, right? So if you add 2 pi over 1, right? So negative, it's going to become, times this by 3, and Rania, it's going to become 6 pi. Okay, so now you actually see that negative 5 pi over 3 is the same exact angle as
1 pi over 3.
Pi over 3, which is actually in what quadrant?
Quadrant 1.
Quadrant 1. You're like, whoa, that's your first quadrant angle. So now pi over 3 is this guy right here. So I'm going to draw the line, right? But now the only problem is it's on ring 1. I do hate giving you guys R values of 1s because it gets so tight. Like, so it's the very first circle. And you just got to put a dot there. And that's going to be this angle, right? So what is it, pi over 3? Okay, so pi over 3 is that arrow marker, right? We already did negative pi over 3. That would be coming from this way. I'm going to draw the arrow marker so you guys can see it. This would be negative 5 pi over 3. Okay, so that one, the blue line, has a positive angle and it has a negative. You see that? All you now want to do is go diagonal, draw a dashed line. It's got to be dashed. And it's going to be pi over 3, so it's this guy that I'm marking with the purple, right? So I do it dashed. This is where a ruler helps because it keeps you in line, because they get very, it gets very like your eyes on the paper sometimes. You'll hit the wrong line. Okay, so now looking at the purple, we're in what quadrant? 3. So what I'm going to set up, right, I'm going to go doom, doom, doom. Okay, what's the angle in the third quadrant for pi over 3? What's the angle? So what's this purple angle here?
4 pi over 3.
4 pi over 3, right? You're using your quadrant rules. You're in the third, so that's 1 more, right? Now, because we're on the purple, I make this a negative 1. And you check, right? So you say, okay, 4 pi over 3 would land me on the dash, but I want to land on the blue, so my 1 has to be negative. And I would land there, if you like. So now, to get the other name, you just have to get the negative angle. That's it. You make it a negative 1. You already did the work over here for the 6 pi over 3. So you have 4 pi over 3. Subtract now, because you want the negative angle, right? Sebastian, what are we going to get there? 4 minus 6. Negative 2. You just bring everything else along with it. I forgot the negative. So the other angle should be negative 2 pi over 3. And if you think about it, that should be, right, this would be 1, 2. You would be here in that third quadrant. And then you'd break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side. And it shoots right through because of the negative 1. If you didn't have the negative 1, you would stay there. 5. Theta is 11 pi over 6. All right, so this is number 3. So, all right, right, so what quadrant are we dealing with?
4.
4, right? And it's going to be this guy, right? In the 4th. So, and it's a 5. So this is where rulers really are good because it's hard. Your eyes like, all right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that's 5, and then 11 pi over 6, right? Is that good? All right, now we want, let's stay here. So the green, that's the 11 pi, right? And then I want, what's the negative angle, right? So now you could do the, what's the negative going to be? Negative pi over 6, right? Negative pi over 6. You, again, do the math, right? Like, I don't have room over there, but you can do 11 pi over 6 minus 2 pi. I'm just showing it for the fans. Right? You times them by 6. You're going to get that 11 pi over 6. 12 pi over 6. And you'll see that that's negative 1, right? Okay. So now, to get the other angle, this is where you want to draw the line straight through, Sean. So we want to draw the line. There's no math you need to do here. There is math you can do, but I don't even want to show you guys that, to be honest. It just makes it a little bit easier. You guys know your unit circle, so rely on what you know already. So now you're like, okay, this is the second quadrant. You know it still has to be a pi over 6. We're not going to change that, right? So now you're like, what's the angle in second quadrant that's pi over 6? How much? 5 pi over 6. Right? Rely on your previous knowledge. You worked really hard at that. You know what I mean? And you're like, okay, that's 5 pi. Use the math you already just did, right? We already got this guy. So 5 pi over 6 minus 12 pi gives us what negative angle? Negative 7. Just make sure the r is the negative r here. And then you did it. And you're like, woo. No, that's more for now. Like, just helping you visualize. Okay, so homework. All right, this is homework. Let me just stop.